Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. This one into the Capricorn new moon, the super new moon of the 23rd of December. Now, there's a couple of things about this particular event that are really very special. So please stay with me whilst I share what that's about. But first of all, I want to structure how I'm going to go about the video. So what does a Capricorn new moon mean? Why is this one so particularly special? Also, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact time it occurs in all the major cities around the world. And also, by sharing a simple event chart wheel for you, we can see the house that the Capricorn new moon occurs in is house 10. But also Jupiter, the planet of growth, has just moved into the sign of Aries again, where it's going to be through to the 16th of May. But then I'll share with you the event chart based on equal house and universal central time, which gives us an ascendant of Aquarius. And that's why this event is so incredibly symbolic. And that's what I'm going to be exploring in quite a lot of depth. Then I'm going to share with you each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your sun or the ascendant or both. It's your choice. Now, if you are new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Also, with year 2023 just around the celestial corner, if you give me 3 pieces of your personal birth data, I'll give you your forecast for the upcoming year. But in my special package, you'll also get your life path chart, your character analysis, but also your general zodiac sign, your Chinese zodiac sign, and also your Indian zodiac sign forecast. And it's all got 30% off, so please see the link below for more. So welcome, the Capricorn new moon on the 23rd of December. Capricorn is very much about the established order. It can be to do with big organisations, government, structures, can be to do with our actual buildings, even the bones within our bodies, because that's a structure too. But it's very much to do with the prevailing long-term order. And because Pluto, the planet of change, has been in this sign since 2008, we've seen a lot of the energy of Capricorn being manifested in both a very constructive way, but sometimes a much less constructive way. Pluto, of course, can be around or be the influence of the underworld. So things to do like power being used in the wrong kind of ways for corruption, for example, to retain power over people, or perhaps have influence over financial decisions within governments. There's been quite a lot of revelations around those areas, and Pluto, of course, can be to do with secrets being revealed. But this particular one is the second of this year. The first occurred on the 2nd of January. Now, when we get a 13-month year like this, this is really quite unusual. It only happens every 2.5 years. So I feel it's really the progression of our journey collectively. You know, we've had the experience of having all the benefits of materialism, which Capricorn is very much about, I feel. It's an earth sign. It's ruled by the steady Eddie of the zodiac, Saturn. Saturn, of course, has got rather a dark reputation of being very limiting and cold and a bit unfeeling. And you could say that the preoccupation with money at the expense of the feelings of people has definitely been one of the downsides since Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. But this new moon squares up with Jupiter, the planet of growth, which has just moved into Aries. Now, the sign of Capricorn and the sign of Aries are both cardinal, which is about action, leader signs. Aries very much about getting things off the ground. So once Jupiter comes out of its post-retrograde shadow on the 14th of February, it will pick up its influence, but right through to the 16th of May, if there is something we want to start afresh, Jupiter gives us a lot of get-go to go for those targets. But of course, the sign of Capricorn can also be about where we set goals and ambitions. And there's nothing wrong with having good things in life. It's just all about having a balance. Every zodiac sign and every planet has a plus side and a downside. It's not a one-dimensional influence. So in this particular event, for example, we do have a collection of energy in the sign of Capricorn with Venus and also Pluto there along with Mercury. But Mercury itself is in its pre-retrograde shadow. So we just need to be conscious that we're being really tested about the cost of things, our values, anything to do with ambitions we once had may be ripe for some kind of transformation. Now on the screen now you can see where this event occurs in your locality. But in terms of the simple birth chart wheel, of course the Sun and the Moon, Venus, Mercury and Pluto are all in the 10th house. But you can see that Jupiter is in house 1, about those new beginnings. So if we have an optimistic idea, it needs to make sure that it's going to reach some kind of approval or recognition or given the nod by the people in the know. So the Capricorn energy could be a bank, it could be something to do with a loan or a grant, or it could be investors, and that new idea needs to be tested by their wisdom and experience, which is the upside of Capricorn. Now on the screen now you can see the equal house event chart wheel based on Universal Central Time, and that gives us that ascendant in the sign of Aquarius. Now the great thing about a 9 degrees and 58 minutes ascendant in Aquarius is that it's exactly conjunct the part of fortune. So that gives us a sense of possibilities. It's also forging a tremendous trine with Mars, despite its retrograde in the 5th house. So there's a lot of drama around that. So our ideas can be very lively. It's just that Saturn is also in house 1, which asks us not to rush things, to make sure that we are systematic and careful and very diligent in how we embark on any new idea, or if we're wanting to inject new energy into an ongoing scheme. But you can see that Venus, it's in house 12 in Capricorn, but it is forging a terrific angle with the North Node and also Uranus in the 4th house. The 4th house is where we live, how we live there and who with. It's our emotions. Uranus is very much about the truth, the ruler of the sky in mythology. But of course it's in its fall in Taurus, and it's been a bumpy coexistence with Saturn over the last couple of years. But here it's given us the opportunity to be much more open-minded. It can create unexpected possibilities, particularly around relationships. So if we have been thinking about the value of our relationships, it's very important to stay open-minded. And remember, Venus also rules money, so more imaginative approaches to using our resources is also very important. But in this particular event chart, you can see that Jupiter is in house 2, which is very Tauran, very much to do with the money. And the Sun and the Moon are in the idealistic house 11, a kind of Aquarius feel. So very, very important that we do stay very grounded in our approach to things. Now, because of the energy crisis, because of interest rates going up and the cost of all sorts of commodities increasing, we're all becoming much more aware of how we budget. So I think this particular event over the next month is saying, look, budget very carefully indeed. Why is it a supermoon? It's because the moon is very near to the Earth when this event occurs, the nearest point in the cycle. But the 2nd of January, Capricorn new moon was also a supermoon. So quite a wonderful event. But I also want to draw your attention to Mars in house 5 in terms of equal house, but you can see just 3 degrees away is IC. Now this is where we feel things. This is very much to do with where we relate and where we find security. So basically Mars is influencing our security, but also it's in opposition with the midheaven. So I think that points towards the potential for turbulence. So although the ascendant is very get-going in its angle to Mars, and also the IC, and also the midheaven, So we've got a sense of energy around ideas and the exchange of ideas, because Gemini and Sagittarius are very much about ideas. Aquarius is about new ideas, about the collective. I think it's very, very important that we're aware that there could be some turbulence that affects our sense of security. So that turbulence could be around transport systems, it could be around delivery structures, it could be around our journeys, it could be around the exchange of information. So a lot of turbulence is likely to occur in the next month, but there can be opportunities to do things in different ways, with Venus and Uranus and the North Node in that wonderful trine. But that square between the Sun and the Moon and Jupiter asks us to keep grounded, but also if we have got an ability to help others who are less fortunate than us, that particular influence is brilliant for being benevolent to good causes. Now please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs. So Aries, for you, your ambitions really come under the astral spotlight. And if you've been working incredibly hard this year to try to understand and how to react to the impact of COVID and then this cost of living crisis, you may be a little bit unsure about how this is going to play out as you go into the new year. And I think over the Christmas holidays you will be thinking and discussing quite a bit around what your role in life may be. But see Neptune's actually in a very neat angle with Mercury, a bit more of an extended angle with Venus and Pluto, but that's saying to you that you must listen to your instincts. Your instincts are going to be vital in terms of any big decision making you make, and I wouldn't be too rash in your approach with your ruler in that opposition to the midheaven and cresting on that 4th house cusp. So if you are wanting to start something afresh, reorientate your direction in a new way, there can be opportunities there, but I think you will have to listen to those instincts, but also be open-minded about the type of things you could do. Something radically different could really talk to you, or it may be an accumulation of skills you've gathered over a very long period of time can finally pay off for you. Now Taurus, for you, the gathering of planets in the sign of Capricorn, including your ruler, is pushing you to be open to new ways of doing things, but that's nothing new. That's been going on for a long time due to Uranus being in your sign and of course Pluto. But because Uranus and the node are in a great link to your ruler, you really may be in the mood to shake things up, even if it's where you spend your Christmas holiday or the type of places you like to visit. Change can be as good as a rest. But I think around your financial situation, things can feel a bit challenged because of Mars's influence. And you may be a little bit unsure that if you do try something new, will you be giving up something that's familiar and gives you that security, which is very important to your sign. The great news is that Saturn, the planet of limitation, is still in your sector of work and success, is no longer being challenged in such a turbulent way by Uranus. In fact, Saturn is forging a semi-sextile with Mercury. So if you can think about how you can gain new skills, perhaps by retraining, watching some online videos, the reading you do, anything to do with travel and your career could work out extremely well. But flexibility is really the key word for you for the next month. Now Gemini, because of the energy that's in your 8th house, this is a very intense time. It depends, of course, where exactly your sun or other inner planets may be located, what is actually picking up on your personal situation. The sun and the moon are right at the start of Gemini. Pluto's right at is forging a quincunx with the sun right at the start of Gemini, whereas Pluto's right at the end of the sign of Capricorn. So if you're born further into Gemini towards the end, you may pick up the influence of that. If you're more around the middle or the latter part of the month, then Venus and your ruler Mercury could be quite impactful on this event. But in general, in terms of whole sign and solar astrology, this 8th house energy is really pushing you to make some massive changes, and perhaps some of those changes feel a bit daunting. Some of them may be deeply psychological, some of them may be to do with money, shared resources, business interests. Then again, with Mars in such a prominent and influential position, and on this particular event chart very well placed in its angle to the path of fortune and the ascendant, you may be ready to really take a walk into something new and exciting. Saturn's been testing your desire to expand over the last couple of years, 2.25 years. But if you've really seized the opportunity, Saturn may have transformed the amount of knowledge you have and the way you're sharing it with others in a very successful way. Jupiter for you is in your sector of friendship. So I think that if there is jealousies, possessiveness, control, manipulation around some kind of group situation, that may be something that you recoil from over the next 4 weeks. Now, Cancer, this gathering of energy in the sign of Capricorn is very much about relating. So relationships for you have changed hugely since 2008. Some big players may have gone, but also some big players may have come in. You may have become smitten with someone in a very important way, or you may have moved on from a previously committed relationship because things really changed. The politics of relationships is really what Pluto's been teaching you. I think really if you've really embraced that journey, this new moon can help you to see how far you've come. With Jupiter high in the sky, I think professional relationships need particular care over the next month. If you're trying to pitch for a new job or a new deal in an existing situation, or you're trying to seek the cooperation of influential people, the key here is don't try too hard. Your natural way of expressing yourself is going to be enhanced because all this 7th house energy helps you to emerge from that rather resistant and sometimes defensive way of being and engaging with other people in a much more open manner. For sure, Mercury is in its pre-retrograde shadow, so choosing words carefully and being very considered about what you listen in terms of the other person's perspective can also be very influential to you. However, if you're single, Venus forging that sparkling angle to the North Node in Uranus could bring someone into your world in the most unexpected but exciting fashion, and it could be someone who really makes your pulse race over the next 4 weeks. Now, that brings us to Leo. For you, a lot of energy in the 6th house. This is to do with where we're of service to others, where we're trying to get purity or efficiencies in our everyday world. It can be to do with organisation, and you may have become a past master at this over this time since 2008. But Jupiter's kind of saying to you, look, have you been doing too much for people? Uranus and the North Node are saying, don't neglect your talents, especially if they're different. Don't pulverise your passion by your sense of duty. That's the message for you, Leo, over the next 4 weeks. Now, Virgo, for you, this gathering of energy in the sign of Capricorn, along with your ruler Mercury, is delicious. And also the link between Venus and Uranus could make you really quite daring. Even if you're someone who's very cautious when it comes to relationships, ordinarily, you may do something different over the next month, even in terms of accepting some social invitations. Obviously, COVID has choked off a lot of interaction between us, but if you are in a location where you feel it's good to get out and mix and mingle, do it, because your personality is going to be shining brightly, and that's going to draw a lot of goodness and enjoyment and pleasure in your direction. Now, for you, Libra, the collection of energy in Capricorn is once again evoking house 4. But Jupiter moving into your sector of relating is an encouragement to you not to go back on any of the lessons that have been hard earned since Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008. It really hasn't been easy for a lot of Libra people or people who've got significant placements in the sign of Libra, whether it's the ascendant or other personal planets. So I think Jupiter's kind of saying, maintain your faith. Jupiter's about faith. And the 7th house can be about where we set our stall out in reaching that pivot point between what we give and what we get. You can be very attuned to feeding other people's needs, which is a great gift of yours. But I think this set of energy is saying, look, if you want to hunker down over the next month and really have some time enjoying being very peaceful, being in nature, being with people you really feel at ease with, take the opportunity and it will be absolutely delightful. Mars could give you a push to go and do something a bit more adventurous or daring or go further afield, but even when you get there, you're still going to crave for the same thing, which is peace, tranquility and serenity. Which brings us to Scorpio. Now, the gathering of energy in house 3, including your modern ruler of Pluto, is very charismatic. Your ideas can really gain much more traction over the next month. If you're someone who writes or teaches or trains, or you're involved in digital technology or quick travel, then I think that you can really go through a period of success. Now, Jupiter in your 6th house is just saying, don't promise more than you can realistically deliver. Don't try and cram too much in. There is a sense of excitement around you, so slow things down, narrow the focus, and just go at the things that are really exciting for you. So the ideas or the interactions, whether it's with people in your community, a neighbour, siblings, anyone who you find very stimulating, this can be an exciting next 4 weeks. And it could be someone's ideas as much as their personal charm or looks that you actually find captivating over the next 4 weeks. But if you want to tell people about exciting ideas or qualities or skills you've got, you may find that they're much more receptive than you may have imagined they could be. Sagittarius. The collection of energy in Capricorn is good for your cash flow, which has been pounded, I think, over the last few years quite a bit, particularly when Saturn joined up with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. That was tough. And of course, your ruler Jupiter was also there, and Jupiter's not at its best in the sign of Capricorn. And every time we get Saturn and Jupiter together in Capricorn, we always get a recession. So that's just absolutely how it works. But I feel that you're going to get some good news, even despite the strains and stresses that we're all facing. Jupiter for you is in house 5, so it's saying don't be too generous if you get some kind of good news. You know, your natural bubbliness and optimism may want you to share it with the people you really care and love for. Mars is a bit of a clue because it's in your 7th house. It may be in retrograde, but it's saying make sure you assert your boundaries around financial matters. And I think even if it is tough at the moment, you don't have a lot of cash, I think this is a very enterprising new moon and can give you a lot to work with over the next 4 weeks in a very positive way. Now, Capricorn, for you, the new moon is a chance to once again think about your personal identity, the way you dress, the way you have your hair, your individual ideas. You are someone who very often embraces the conventional, and the ongoing continuity of life is something you have great respect for. But I think this is a dazzling chart which is asking you to dare to really inject your whole situation with a fierce desire to do what's right for you, the individual. Don't necessarily play so much by the rules. If you do, you could take away some of the elemental qualities that you can bring to situations at the moment. Sometimes we have to be a bit more on the edge to make progress. So, for example, romantically, if your natural caution, and often Capricorn people are a bit shy when they're younger, stops you from reaching out towards someone you like, then yes, you won't get rejected, but you won't get success. In order to win a game of football, we have to score goals, which means being a bit looser in defence. If we just sit back and defend and defend and defend, suddenly a goal gets scored and it gets much more difficult to get on the front foot. So this is time for you to be very dynamic in your approach. And Uranus is surely helping you. It's asking you to dare to embrace even a more novel or unique or completely left field approach, because it could pay off for you handsomely. Aquarius, the collection of energy in Capricorn is in house 12, and 12th house new moons are the most difficult, to be honest. So you've had 2 in this last year, and of course there's also been a lot of energy still coming out of the sign of Capricorn because of Pluto. So I feel it just depends on how you've worked with Pluto since 2008. If you've really got into understanding that the more your deeper perspective about your motives and those of others is clear, and the more you've let go of things that aren't working, stop fighting for things, stop trying to use your logic and embrace your fears, anxieties, and become more holistic in your approach to how you balance your physicality, your spirituality, and your more spiritual dimension, then you will be surfing this particular new moon really well. But if you do find yourself wanting to hunker down over the next month, it wouldn't really be a surprise. If you do, expect to do a lot of reading, and there could be some very unexpected guests or contact through your family that you're just not anticipating. Which brings us to Pisces. So for you, a glorious lineup of energy in the sign of Capricorn is all about your future, but it's all about the collective, your friends. The planning that we often do at the turn of each year can be just effortless for you this time, I feel. And also Neptune, your ruler, is enabling the process. It's helping you to be imaginative and to embrace your sensitivity and empathy as well in terms of casting your future plan. It is true that Saturn is in the last throes of its journey through your 12th house, which has left you isolated, drained, and at times really perhaps disillusioned over the last 2.25 years. Once it moves into your sign on the 7th of March, it's a new epoch for you. Won't necessarily be easy, but it's going to help you to come into the present and focus on what's really important for you in terms of your everyday structures. I still think if you're not really happy with where you're living, the chances are you will move in the next 3 or 4 months, or set in motion the plan to move. But your connection to others is really very strong. So I think people who have values that you really respect can be like a magnet for you. Equally, if you are trying to do something different with money, I wouldn't be too speculative in your approach, because Jupiter in the square with the Sun and the Moon could see you, particularly around a property matter, perhaps being a bit too daring just when the market is rather contracted. But generally speaking, a real opportunity to mix and mingle and to be a bit more out there than you have been over the last couple of years. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. All the best for this Capricorn new moon.